Welcome to the Bold Analysis. In 2013, Josh Olum won Lang'ata parliamentary seat through ODM, and the gap between Josh Olum and Nixon Korir was the TNA candidate by then was 2,000 votes. In 2017, Nixon Korir was in a position to win that seat. That is a short story about the deputy president's Nairobi politics. And recent opinion polls has been showing that Raila Odinga is ahead of deputy president here in Nairobi. And you'll see that even during, within a period of 1 week, the Kenya Kwanza team has pitched camp in Nairobi after the day before they went to Jacaranda. They went the very week they were in Nairobi, the Jacaranda event. Then also yesterday, after attending what was their Nairobi Economic Forum, they held another rally in Mathare. And they are the ones that are still going on in Westlands and other parts of the country. So, if you look keen, you'll realize that politics of Nairobi, or rather the vote basket in Nairobi, has been a big bother to deputy president's presidential strategists. But I want to take you back to the story that I started with. After the 2013 election, you'll realize that there were a bit of deputy president always wanted to have a chunk Deputy President William Ruto always wants to have a share of the Nairobi cake. And when I was just doing my research, I realized that since the colonial days, there is no single time that someone from the Rift Valley, or rather the larger Kalenjin community, was ever a mayor in Nairobi. Before the constitutional dispensation of 2010, Nairobi had been ruled by 40 mayors. If you look even latest, between 2003, Joe Akech, Dickson Wathika, that was 204 to 208. Then there is Geoffrey Majewa. Geoffrey Majewa is from my village, that is Ngia. Then George Aladwa was the last mayor of Nairobi, and then the first governor became Kidero through ODM. After Kidero, Sonko. Now Sonko, they are going to look now. They are looking now for the third governor. That informs why cleverly, and this was a very clever move, Deputy President snatched Johnson Sakaja from ANC to be the UDA candidate in Nairobi. And he has always wanted this. So when I was just doing this research, I found out that there is a dominant narrative that Sakaja is not a Luhya. Sakaja is a Sabaot, and a Sabaot is sub-tribe of the Kalenjin community hailing from Mount Kenya. Not from Mount Kenya, but from Bungoma County, the areas of Mount Elgon, instead of saying Mount Kenya, Mount Elgon. So, to some extent, because I was trying to look at his quest for Nairobi, that perhaps informs why he was in Sakaja. And Sakaja is, I think after Sonko, Sakaja was one of the most sober and promising young person that could really shake Nairobi politics. And for lack of a better word, I think there was a scramble for Sakaja between President Uhuru and perhaps Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. The CBD has 2.5 million voters as of the register now. So I wanted us to point out to something within Nairobi that is very critical. Taking you back to my starting statement, After the 2013 election, there was a meeting in 2016 in Kericho County. Ruto was speaking in Kalenjin, and he shared a lot of information to the people, telling them that they also needed to create a space in Nairobi. I want to share with you that video, even though he's speaking in pure Kalenjin, but there is a bit of that translation. Though now I just want to highlight. He's telling them to come to Nairobi and establish a corner for themselves. That they should not come to Nairobi only to dance and drink and go back, so that they go grazing. And he was telling them that the GDP of the country, 50% of the GDP of the country comes from Nairobi here. And so he was simply trying to rally behind the Kalenjin members, the elite members who are in the villages, to at least come to Nairobi but establish a corner for themselves. I may be wrong, but if there is something that was done then, there is quite a high number of people from the Kalenjin community that stay in Langata, or rather that are registered as voters in Langata, because he always wanted that position as the base for him to establish a base to get a chunk of the Nairobi cake. So listen to this a bit.
Kura ilikemi Nairobi waso Nairobi 50% nebo magarna de tap Kenya ko mi Nairobi. Wakaso 50% nebo GDP. Itaningen what GDP is. Ko mi Nairobi. Koma kumeje Nairobi ne mi 50% GDP nebo Kenya. Koma kitinye jita kwa lenjin ne mujumbe ngen Nairobi amune. Kisi tu nagai konyo ko sire jele meke ka polusianyo kote ko baske Nairobi konyo wajumbe angwa. Konyo ko sire jine jumba ine ainoni ne ko baske Nairobi korujundi nya wajumbe mut. Ko giga gibe tenu nyugai kine ni gigira tenyu kitu ka giga giga nangine asuma kimi Nairobi re mi makarne ta be. Okase Chitu lo mojin kuno chitu lo mi Nairobi. Koma Kenya ruji ne sep chon go lo ba tugele ni getile gura bo man. Ana getile gura. Botile je mi Nairobi, botile Nairobi tol. Ko gas ma gas kalle kimma je chitu ko tile gura yat Nairobi ne mi Nairobi. Kimma je ke ni no 2017 ko mi jita na ngolo le budita ko le jine mujumbe Nairobi. O gas ngul. Ko chile gura ni geli boye 2013. Inyor ji ne gela rapport nyo kura elibu tu maximum ko ni yi ko tinye elibu tu maximum. Okase ketile kura ya langata mwai tenguni. Ketile kura ya langata yu na jam go ko ne le minde ke mele ketile yo tang ko kunji na thang. Okase Jega tul nei muji onanga bi wa ko Nairobi bi tile ono to sige tinye ko kwet ne mio so nge ti kami wa tang nyo jo isumbwa ni ko nyora ke jek mujumbe ne ndi ko sumbwa ni nyo to ba Nairobi yo ago muti ogas onge bi tio tinye tugu oteje me maguma je chi ne kurto ge amo ba Nairobi ko e mai yo wa tanzi wachana na hiyo ibo teje me yikan teje me mama jinge nda Nairobi ujida kwale ndiko ne mai ya ko mumweni akwa tanzi basa tanzi ya tanzi asitu amoy we Nairobi ge pare ge mami tei le ge lengir mamagap sanga nei le ni wendi su keta jinge le jingare bu wendi agi tebien nengo okase gogere bije ptua le juginyo ko bo ging notice tanoli ko nyo ko nyoru mujumbe ne Nairobi yo teje sili ko marmari ke mete ke te ko na ka ne agen nyo ge te ko marmari tu verga i pik ko mo ta yalo biju o len ba we me jitana masri ne matinye gi ko undano ile ni an ian di ya ka tu ga ameti nyatan mo len jitana matinye tan ni ko gi ko ni tu kyo nge ko jo.
So where do you think that DP Ruto has those deep interest in Nairobi? There is something that you must also look. The keen interest in the capital for this is both Raila, Ruto, Uhuru, and political leadership of the country is one, the deep commercial interests here. remember when there was this other the Western Hotel. Remember all this Ulabalu about Western Hotel that sits in Langata, and that is also the reason why actually he wants the members of the Kalenjin community, or rather he is so much interested to win the Langata parliamentary seat, because first, that Western Hotel sits in Langata area. Number two, there's just a lot that you can gather if you take control of Nairobi. There are investment interests in terms of accommodation, building of houses, and a lot. So that is also one of the reasons why almost all these politicians have an interest in Nairobi. But in the light of the politics of the day, if you can capture Nairobi well, win a governor there, perhaps even win a senator, and quite a chunk of MCAs and MPs, then you can destabilize or legitimize the government from within Nairobi. Why am I saying so? The state house of the country sits in Nairobi. Of course, there are different state lodges. Different institutions, United Nations headquarters is within Nairobi. The diplomatic residences and offices, foreign diplomatics, are within Nairobi. So whenever everything is happening, and whatever happens in Nairobi gets the attention of not only the country but even the international community. That is why in 2015, when Raila Odinga was doing the freedom operation, the Monday protests, which were protesting about the IBC must go, rather for the commission to be removed from office, you will see that those events, because I covered some of them, we really witnessed international media houses covering that. So if you can capture here, this is a place where if you can just cause a traffic, maybe a protest that is just causing the flow, affecting the flow of traffic in Nairobi, it's already a big mess, and it's going to create a lot of anxiety even amongst Kenyans. But for you to do that, you need to, and that is why the president and Raila Odinga had decided to put concerted efforts to make sure that at least they make sure they win the governor of Nairobi. It is not easy. It was not easy to get Tim Wanyonyi to step down, to get the rest of that team, Governor Kananu, who was supposed to defend that seat after taking over from Sonko, just to allow these people, to convince these people to step down. And even if Sakaja's degree saga is motivated by the bid to make sure that UDA stopped from winning the governor in Nairobi, then there is more than what catches the eye. It is within Nairobi CBD that you can destabilize the government through all sorts of things. Even the political parties, fanatics, mostly are within here. But then there is also the issue of potential voting power. Raila Odinga knows that if you talk about Nairobi, Raila has a base that when you go to Kibera, the local residents there, almost 80% subscribe to ideas of Raila Odinga. Same if you look to the President Uhuru Kenyatta 2017-2013, Mathare areas were more inclined towards President Uhuru Kenyatta. And that is how politics is being now. If you go the other side of Westlands, where Tim Wanyonyi, if you look at Westlands, Tim Wanyonyi, Fred Gumo, those who've been impeached there, that seat is normally inclined towards the Luhya nation. And you will realize that people who win Westlands seat are Luhyas. If you go to Makadara, where Alado wins, you know, there is a bit of that organization that puts in. Now, the new emergence is what I was starting with, Nixon Korir with Langata. And I don't know whether Jalango will be in a position to beat Nixon Korir, having mentioned that that is one of the MP seats that William Ruto is looking after. I don't think there is any other seat. William Ruto cannot win an MP seat in Kibera. They cannot win Westlands from Tim Wanyonyi. Mathare is another story. Now, even if you go to Mathare is a base for Raila Odinga. Parts of Umoja is a very strong base to Raila Odinga. These are some of the things that they have really been struggling with, and DP Ruto would want to have a chunk. However, it is not a walk in the path. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my bold analysis on the deep interests, why Raila's popularity in the CBD is a panic to Kenya Kwanza team.